Alex,
What's up, Tyler?
you have a pet dog,
Indeed, I do.
but is there like a pet, like an exotic pet in quotations, that you would be like, I'm getting this. Sorry, wifey. This is my dream pet.
Hmm. A tortoise. A
Tortoise.
tortoise would be cool.
Tortoise would be really cool. They
Because
don't
I
need a
don't.
they don't need a whole bunch of space either.
No, and they'd be easier than a turtle because you don't have to like do all the water changes and all
Yeah,
that. Like they'd be very dog-like, but slow,
yeah. I want a
just kind of
raccoon.
chilling. Why a raccoon? Trash panda?
Yeah, I want a trash panda. Hey, I don't know. The nocturnal part kind of bites,
Mhm.
but other than that, like they're cool. They wash their food, so they're pretty
They're
sanitary.
very clean. They're very clean
Yeah,
animals. They clean themselves regularly.
yeah. So it's not like I'd have to give it. I'd give it a bath every once in a while, but like it's not like I had to like constantly wash it because it gets in the mud all the time.
Yeah. Be
Well, anyway,
good.
uh, welcome to Life the Complete Story. I am Tyler, joined by my co-host Alex. We're off to a rolling start today.
Oh, it's great. It's a good start. We're talking about uh we're finally getting into the tetrapods.
Yes,
Big jump. We're out of the fish
yeah.
finally.
I was gonna say we're out of the water, but we're not quite there yet. Still, still
No,
in the water. Uh,
sometimes.
most of the time.
Partly.
So today we're talking about amphibians. Today we're just going to give you a brief overview of amphibians, and we will get into each individual group down the line. But as always, we will start how we normally do with our nature in the news. Today I found an article published yesterday, October 11th, where scientists have unearthed uh, a time capsule. We'll say basically they found some amber deposits, and if you don't know, amber is like fossilized tree sap from ancient trees, and oftentimes they have some type of insect within them. Well, not often, but occasionally they are found with an insect of some sort, mosquito, fly, beetle, something along those lines. Um, so we have found in South America, in the forests of Ecuador, 112 million year old uh, piece of amber. And in the picture they have in this article, they have an insect within it. Obviously, that was what you want to see in your amber fossils. Uh, and Alex? What is the importance of finding amber?
A lot of times it's a twofold kind of thing. Like in this case, you find amber fossils. So this one's 112 million year old midge, which is a type of insect. It's related to like the dragonflies, damsel mayflies sort of family. Um, and it kind of gives you a twofold thing because you get things such as those insects, or uh, related things that typically are not preserved well, if at all. Uh, as well as you get a kind of a look at uh, the trees as well, the kinds of trees that there were. Like I said, that the amber is fossilized tree sap. So the fact that they made enough of the amber and then it hardened quick enough and was covered that it was able to fossilize kind of gives us an idea of what the world looked like back then. Kind of
Yeah.
what your dominant trees and insects were.
So within the 60 samples they found in this amber quarry, or in this quarry, uh, 21 included bio inclusions. That would be some type of insect found within it, including, Diptera, which are the flies,
Mm-hmm.
Coleoptera, which are beetles, uh, Hymenoptera, which are the ants, bees, wasps, the social insects, as well as spiderweb even.
Mm.
And then within the surrounding rocks, we found a lot of um, plant impressions that give you some of the more well preserved ones are able to give you spores, or like other pollen traces, things like that. But this is big because, as Alex said, this gives you an in-depth look of something that's not exactly well fossilized. It's very hard to get a fossilized insect because they're so soft-bodied outside inside of that exoskeleton.
Yeah, usually they just wind up smushed if
Yeah.
they don't get eaten.
So that's going to do it for my nature in the news. Alex, anything to add?
No, not for this. It's pretty neat. Something we don't get to talk a lot about. It's very cool.
All right, so that'll move us over into our lesson for today, Alex.
Yeah, so as we said, we're starting the amphibians. So this is the class.
It's weird because it's like
yes, class amphibia. I'm having a moment. I apologize. So this is the class amphibia. So we are now in a whole new class. We're not just in
the last class was Teleosta.
Yeah, with Teleosta.
Or, yeah.
So that shows you how much of a shift we are now at. So these are the amphibians. These are the earliest true tetrapods. They are ectothermic, which means that they are, as we would say, cold-blooded, quote unquote. What that means is that they do not generate their own body heat. They have to get that heat from outside, typically by basking in the sun or living in areas that are warm enough. And that's important because that means if the temperatures fluctuate too much, then some of their body processes are not able to function because they require it to be at certain temperatures. They're also anamniotic, which means that they lay eggs, but those eggs do not have an amniotic sac. If I'm kind of taking that correctly,
they don't have the hardish shell, but also the sac. So when you think of like a bird or a reptile egg, it's got the hard casing as well as an amniotic sac, and that's what makes it so big compared to an amphibian's egg, which looks very much like a fish egg, smaller, weaker shell.
So the short way to put it is that they must lay their eggs in water because they don't have a shell to keep themselves moist.
Right.
And all of the living members of the class Amphibia fall into the subclass Lys Amphibia, and there are 3 orders that are still surviving underneath of that subclass, and that is the order Anura, which are the frogs and the toads, Urodela, which are your salamanders and newts, and then Simnophiona, which are your Sicilians, which those guys are kind of funky. So we'll talk about them much later on. But most members are at the very least semi-aquatic, inhabiting a lot of different habitats, primarily though freshwater and wetland ecosystems. Because of the way they are, there really aren't any saltwater amphibians, if any.
No, because they use their skin to breathe.
Yes.
So they dry out from the salt.
Yes. And as I said, primarily semi-aquatic. There are some that are fully aquatic, which means that they even though they're amphibians, that term amphibian means like land and sea, like they can be in and out of the water. But some are strictly aquatic. But pretty much all of them start as aquatic larvae, with gills. So if you think tadpoles, that is primarily what is associated with amphibian larvae. And then they undergo a metamorphosis where they shed those gills and grow kind of their internal air breathing as adults, either through their nostrils or, like Tyler said, through their skin. They can their skin is relatively thin that they can collect oxygen from the water, and that's why they have to stay in the water. Their skin isn't designed in a way to be able to dry out, because then they can't breathe. Tyler, I'll let you take the kind of next chunk of the notes there.
A lot of the smaller members, as much as they have they develop lungs in their adult stages, a lot of the smaller members kind of use exclusively their skin to breathe because their body is so small that they can't really develop strong enough lungs. As Alex said, they need water to breathe since they are amniotic. They don't have that shell. They're very good ecological indicators for habitat health because the way pollutants work, the pollutants interfere greatly with their breathing ability through that skin. So tadpoles and things of that nature are good indicators in your like wetland ecology, water ecology, things of that nature. They emerged from the lobe-fin fish, which we talked about last week during the Devonian period. So that's about what would we say, like 112 million years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
No, 330.
Longer than that. I say 112 is only the. Yeah, 112 is only. Yeah, that's only like the mid Mesozoic.
But those would be the earliest amphibians. The modern amphibians from List Amphibia really didn't come around up until the Carboniferous period and the Permian. During those times, they were the dominant species, but then kind of took that back seat to reptiles and synapsids, which would be today's modern mammals. Once the Great Dying hit and we had that Triassic period, the Mesozoic, that's when the reptiles and synapsids really took over, and the amphibians were still around, but they kind of took more of a background role to those other species. Today, there's about 8,000 individual species, most of which come from that order Anura, which are the frogs. The smallest species is a frog, Paedophrin amauensis. Does not have a common name, but it's about roughly fits on a nickel, I believe. And the largest,
like the size of my thumbnail, basically.
Yeah, it's like a size of a fingernail.
Tiny.
And the largest is the South China giant salamander.
Big.
They are massive for an amphibian.
They're enormous. I mean, multiple feet long. It's impressive.
Luckily, we have a lot of fossilized transitional species that kind of document the adaptations from those lobe-fin fish gradually coming out of the water and developing, not just losing their fins, but developing legs and eventually, the digits on their legs, and getting more stout skeletons to help support a heavier frame on land. Because in a fully aquatic ecosystem, you don't need a strong skeleton because the water around you supports most of your weight. That's why some of these larger species we have, like the great whale, the whale shark and the blue whale, are so big because the water supports a lot of that weight, not a skeletal structure.
Yeah. And with them, their skeletal structure was already adapted for the weight, and then they went back in the water, so it just bulked up even more.
So one of those transitional species is Ichthyostega. They had more efficient lungs, and they adapted nostrils too to help them with terrestrial smelling. And as time went on, as I said, They develop more improved lungs and stronger skeletons. Another adaptation is the hyomandibular bone, which is a very prevalent bone around the gill arches of the fish, slowly diminished and turned into the stapes, which are a vital adaptation for hearing on land. And you can kind of make out the stapes in the picture. I believe it's right about here, kind of behind. It's like the weird circle on frogs that acts as like their eardrum.
Yes. Yeah, that bone is like one of the stapes is part of that what it's called like the hammer anvil, like in humans it's the three smallest bones of the inner ear. And that is what developed to allow that to be able to hear, because it's just the vibration. It had to change to detect vibration on land versus in water.
And the last adaptation that I have here is that, so in their tadpole stages, they have two chambered hearts like most modern fish have. But as they metamorphose into their adult forms, that two-chambered heart develops into a three-chambered heart, and it's two atria.
I believe so. Two atria and a ventricle.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I can find something about it.
Yeah, they lose their gills, develop lungs, and they have a single ventricle and two atria.
Yep. Just
And
found it.
That's really all I have. Alex, do you have anything else you'd like to?
I do not. Obviously, we're going to go through this over these next handful of weeks, a little more in depth with each of our orders.
We're going to spend significantly less time in amphibians than we did in fish, but we're still going to give each order the time it deserves.
Yes, because especially the anurans, there's a lot. I mean, that's pretty much everyone knows what a frog is. So
that's 90% of this.
Yes. Yeah, it is 59 families. Now, I don't know if we're going to go family by family, but we may, or we're not, each family is not going to get its own episode, but we will definitely try to do our best to do it.
We'll probably do suborders or super families.
Yeah.
And a couple in an episode. That way they kind of, we're not here for hours.
We don't bore everyone to death.
Yes.
That would be bad.
But that's all we have for today's lesson. Really quick, just a general overview of amphibians, and we'll hop into the good stuff next week. We haven't decided what order we're going to go in, whether we start with Sicilians or if we start with Anurans. But we'll surprise for next time.
Yes.
But Alex, if you'd like to kick us off for our most wanted.
Yes, sir. I will do that. So our most wanted for this week is going to be the chytrid fungus. So I don't think I talked about this a whole lot. It is something, because we're getting into amphibians, is definitely something that we needs to be talked about, because this fungus, or this group of fungi, is a pathogen on amphibians, primarily frogs, because they are the majority of the amphibian class. But it has caused over 50% of amphibian species globally to decline, in some cases pretty significantly. And there have been a couple which Tyler will talk about. There's one that Tyler will talk about that this fungus has pretty much drove to extinction. So yeah, it is the chytrid fungus, Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis is the is one of them. That I think that is the main one, and then there's also one that is B. salamandrivorians.
Yeah, it's a whole family of fungi,
Yeah,
but for the most part, those are the two main culprits.
yeah. So the first one I said, B. dendropatitis, is found worldwide, and the other one is found only in Europe and Asia as at the moment, where it specifically affects the Urodels, so the salamanders and newts. That's why it's called salamandrivorans. They have it is like I said, that second the B. sal is what this article that I'm looking at here has shortened it to, has not, like I said, has only not been reported outside of Europe and Asia, but there's a very high probability that it makes its way to the Americas because of international pet trade, and it is incredibly contagious. And that is the hard thing about these fungal diseases, is it's hard to treat because fungi and other eukaryotic cells, like mammals and insects, everything else, are very closely related. There's a lot of similar proteins, which make them very hard to treat, which without also killing the animal host. So it just makes makes this even more of a problem. And to wrap up just kind of how it spreads, it attaches to the keratinized portions of amphibians. So these are like the mouth parts of the tadpoles or the skin of adults. So the keratin is just a protein that kind of similar, like your fingernails.
It's exactly what it is.
And we say keratinized because obviously the skin of frogs is not like hard plates, but it kind of gives it a little bit more rigidity. Obviously, there's keratin in our skin as well. It's just the amount is what determines if it's like your fingernails or just skin, but it causes that keratin layer on the skin to degrade, thus causing the skin to just kind of fall off, and then makes the whatever amphibian very lethargic, lose a lot of weight, and then eventually die. And because, as we said, the importance of the skin to amphibians breathing, like their gas exchange and everything, it is a lot of times fatal for these amphibians. So I will stop there to allow Tyler to pick up on his amazing species because it is related.
Yeah. So today's amazing species is going to be the golden toad, which is pretty much the poster child for the chytrid fungus. So part of the reason why the chytrid fungus is so volatile and hasn't been dealt with properly is because of climate change and things of that nature, where the areas where it used to stop, like where when it spread was because it would get cold, so the fungus wouldn't be able to survive as well. But now with climate change happening, those areas are spreading further north, so more amphibian species are being affected by the chytrid as well. One of those being the golden toad, Encilius peregrinus, which is now extinct. This happened way back not way back, in the 90s. And there was the belief that they weren't quite extinct in the wild, but we haven't seen them. They were one of those Lazarus species that we've talked about recently, where
where they were thought to be gone and then they were found again, but these guys were then not found anymore.
it was they were found, and we took a couple breeding pairs into a reserve of some type, but the breeding wasn't as successful as we had hoped, and now they are just extinct. Not just extinct in the wild, but they used to be found around Monteverde, Mexico, which
Costa
is
Rica.
Costa Rica. My bad.
I just pulled up the note. That's why
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure. Yeah, and Reserva Biológica Monteverde,
Yes.
or the Monteverde Biological Reserve.
Yeah, they have not been recorded since 1989. And there have been extensive searches within the former extant region. As I said, climate change as well as airborne pollution is also a big thing because as the pollutants also kind of interfere with that gas exchange on their skin. Not in the same way that the chytrid does, because the chytrid kind of bonds to the skin and grows on the skin and prevents the gas exchange. The pollutants act differently, and I don't know the best way to describe how.
More of like it clogs the pores.
Yeah.
And then as well, some of the pollution, like, has heavy metals in it, and having that thin skin, it gets in and pretty much poisons them.
Yeah, so on the IUCN's website, they kind of post the threats as an invasive or other problematic species, which is the chytrid bacteria, airborne pollutants, and climate change, as well as its limited range. So there's not much we can do in terms of conservation since they are extinct, but we do have a lot of education and water and land protection so that other similar animals don't end up in the same boat. But that's really all I have on these guys. Anything else to add, Alex? I remember doing a case study back in college about them. So
yeah. So that will take us into our last segment. It is our ecology encyclopedia. I'm sure what we're going to be talking about today is mimicry. Now, I'm sure this is something that you may all remember us talking about a lot back with the insects in our super episode, but this comes back especially in the case of something that is called in both like camouflage and then as well as what is called Batesian and Mullerian mimicry, and then the stemming from what is called aposematic coloration. I know I just said a lot of words in very short that are kind of crazy, so I'll break them down. So of course camouflage is just trying to mimic your surroundings, either looking like dead grass or leaves or like bark. And that's especially in the cases of things like tree frogs. They are very vibrant green because they live in the jungle in the trees, and so when they kind of attach to the leaves, they blend in the coloration of the leaves. Or around us, we have like the American the American bullfrog is very green and it blends in with pond vegetation. It's like a greenish brown
green. Yeah,
it's not quite the same green. It's a different. So it's more of like that pond scum kind of greenish brown. Or the American toad, which is completely brown, looks like dirt and dead leaves because that's where they primarily live, just in like that leaf litter layer on the forest floor. So that is camouflage. That then leads into what is called aposematic coloration. So what that means,
that's like poison dart frogs.
Yes, is poison dart frogs. If you wanted to pull up a picture, Tyler.
Yeah. Let's get you. Let's pull up my favorite one.
Yeah. So with aposematic coloration, it is very bright, vibrant but like not blending in colors that basically indicate, hey, I am dangerous, toxic, don't taste good, whatever that means. So these are typically like your very bright, like reds, yellows, and oranges colors that stick out a lot. So in this case, this is a species of poison dart frog. As you can see, that very bright reddish orange mixed with kind of the purpley bluish black feet, that indicates to potential predators that this thing is toxic. It doesn't taste good. It could kill you if you eat it. And it very well could. These poison dart frogs are incredibly deadly. If you ever travel somewhere to see one, do not handle them without gloves. For the love of goodness, don't do it.
They're bad.
Yes. So what this does is sometimes a predator may try to eat one of these, and then over time they learn to avoid them because they know they're toxic or they taste really bad. For the species, you may lose a couple because you get some not super smart or some very brave predators, but they typically
very curious predators.
Yeah, some very curious predators. That's a better way to put it. But usually they learn quickly that these are not to be messed with, and that leads me to the last two parts of mimicry that we have talked about before, and that is the Batesian and Mullerian mimicry. So we'll start with the Mullerian mimicry because that just means that they're the short way to put it is a lot of different species that are toxic kind of share similar coloration. A lot of the poison dart frogs share a lot of these very similar kinds of colors where they are very bright, vibrant, like oranges and yellows and blues and reds. Like they broadcast that they are not to be messed with. The similar way like bees and wasps. But they are all toxic. That what the Batesian mimicry is, if you don't remember, is a non-toxic animal mimicking a toxic one. And that is why you get those predators that are curious, because you could get some that get one of those non-toxic ones because they're curious, kind of brave, trying to eat that one. It's like, oh, this isn't bad. But then they eat another one and learn, hey, this one tastes really bad or made me really sick. So I shouldn't eat stuff that's like that. And if you get predators that will eat those, that wind up eating those toxic ones first, then they really leave the non-toxic ones alone because they see those colors and think this is still a no-go. And typically in nature, bright colors means toxic because most things you want to try to hide and be hard to see, but these guys broadcast where they're at.
So specifically in frogs, there is a individual species known as the mimic poison frog. So it doesn't actually have the same. It doesn't have the same like toxin that the normal poison frogs have, but it has that same coloration. That's all.
That makes sense. Yeah, and like well, I'm sure we'll do a whole because I don't know if this is like its own kind of group. It's its own family of frogs or part of a family of frogs. So we will talk more about the poison dart frogs another time as we're going through. But yeah.
Yes.
But that is all I have for.
Did you talk about Mullerian?
Yeah, I started with that for the same. Yeah, I led with that after I talked about
the my bad. I was in the rabbit hole of
you were looking for pictures and
yeah.
There's
other types of mimicry, but they're not as important.
Yeah, they are not as important or prevalent. They don't necessarily relate to what we're talking about as much. I mean, it could. It's really
the next closest thing would be like milk snakes and coil snakes, but we can talk about
yeah,
that when we get to the serpents.
yeah. That's yeah. It's kind of hard to give examples for the other forms of mimicry, and they're real funky.
Yeah. So that's all we have for today's episode. As always, make sure to follow us on Spotify and wherever you get your podcast, whether it's YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or Spotify. Subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Life Complete Story. Send us an email at lifecompletestory@gmail.com. And Facebook at Life the Complete Story. I think that's all of them.
I believe so. Yeah.
Um,
Good
but
stuff.
as always, I've been Tyler. That's been Alex.
Yes, it is. I did want to add real quick for the listeners and everyone out there, in case you had not seen, a giant of the ecology world has passed on, and that is, if you've ever heard of the name Jane Goodall. She was a primatologist from England, and she is, when you think of, let me pull up some pictures. Some of the old, I don't know if I can find some of the old pictures. Yeah, like here's a great one. I got a good picture for you. Like this. So she was a primatologist and anthropologist from London who spent a ton of time in Tanzania's Gombe Stream National Park. Did a ton of research on chimpanzee behavior. And she was kind of a giant of the ecology, natural sciences world, and she passed at the beginning of October. So I just wanted to share that for everyone. You know, pour one out for I believe Dr. Goodall.
Dr. Goodall, yep.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, there is a documentary series on her on National Geographic, which would be on the Disney Plus platform, I believe, is where you can watch that.
Yeah, possibly.
Not sponsored, but that's where I'd go to watch that if I was you. And Alex, what do we always say?
As we always say, keep on learning, learn something new. You'll never know what you find interesting. But I've been Alex. That has been Tyler, and we thank you for joining us on another episode of Life the Complete Story, and we hope to see you again next time.